I'm Cassandra Mitchell, 29, and I paid $9,000 every year to put my younger sister Olivia through medical school. After 4 years of financial sacrifice, night shifts, and postponed dreams, I attended her graduation only to hear her say, "Your job is done. You shouldn't be here." As I stood frozen, my mother Rebecca added, "You don't know your place," and laughed with Olivia's new doctor friends. Before I share how I went from proud sister to family outcast, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever sacrificed for someone who didn't appreciate it. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant understanding your role early. As the firstborn, 5 years older than Olivia, my position was clear. I was the responsible one, the practical one. Our parents, Rebecca and Thomas Mitchell, never explicitly said it, but their actions spoke volumes. Olivia was the family genius, the one destined for greatness. I was the dependable daughter who would help make that happen. "Cassie, make sure your sister finishes her science project," my mother would say, even when I had my own assignments due. "Olivia needs to focus on her studies if she's going to get into a good college." This became the soundtrack of my childhood, Olivia's potential always taking precedence over my present. Despite never attending college myself, I built a respectable career in real estate. By 23, I was a junior agent at Harrison Properties, working 60-hour weeks and climbing the commission ladder faster than colleagues with degrees. I had saved nearly $30,000 toward buying my own condo, a fact my parents acknowledged with polite nods before quickly pivoting to Olivia's perfect GPA at Westlake University. When Olivia got accepted to Bradshaw Medical School in 2019, our parents threw an extravagant party. I still remember the toast my father gave, his voice cracking with emotion. "The first doctor in the Mitchell family. We always knew you were special, Olivia." That night, after most guests had left, Olivia found me washing dishes in the kitchen. Her eyes were red from happy tears and champagne. "I can't believe I actually got in," she whispered, looking more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. "I always knew you would," I replied honestly. Despite our complicated relationship, I never doubted her intelligence. Then came the financial reality. Olivia had received a partial scholarship, but there was still a significant gap. Our parents had drained their savings for her undergraduate degree. Dad's construction business was struggling after the housing market downturn, and Mom's teaching salary barely covered their mortgage. "We'll figure something out," Mom insisted during a tense family dinner. "Maybe another loan." I watched Olivia push food around her plate, her acceptance letter joy dimming with each passing day. 3 years of undergraduate debt already weighed on her, and the thought of medical school loans seemed overwhelming. 2 weeks later, I made a decision that would alter our relationship forever. After receiving my quarterly bonus, I invited Olivia to coffee at Meredith's Cafe, our childhood favorite. "I want to help with medical school," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside was a check for $9,000, my first contribution toward her education. Olivia's eyes widened. "Cassie, I can't accept this. It's too much." "You can and you will," I insisted. "It's an investment in your future. Just promise you'll be the best doctor you can be." She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'll pay you back every penny once I'm established, I promise." When we told our parents, they reacted with a mixture of relief and what seemed like expectation. Dad hugged me awkwardly while Mom nodded, as if I was finally fulfilling my purpose. "I always said you were good with money," was all my mother offered, before turning to Olivia with endless questions about her upcoming classes. That fall, I helped Olivia move into her small apartment near campus. We spent the weekend arranging furniture, stocking her kitchen, and creating a study space. Those 2 days felt like a return to the sisterhood we'd shared before academic expectations had created a chasm between us. At her first semester celebration dinner, Olivia raised her glass to me. "To Cassie, without whom I wouldn't be here. You're the best sister anyone could ask for." For that brief, shining moment, I felt valued by my family in a way I never had before. Not for my practicality or reliability, but for making a meaningful contribution to our collective dream. I had finally found my place in the Mitchell family narrative, the one who helped Olivia become Dr. Mitchell. If I had known what that role would eventually cost me, I might have torn up that first check. But hindsight offers clarity that hope never can. The first shift in our dynamic came during Olivia's winter break, roughly 1 year into medical school. I had invited her to my apartment for Sisters' Night, something we used to do monthly before her medical studies consumed her time. I'd prepared her favorite pasta dish and bought an expensive bottle of wine to celebrate her excellent first-year grades. "So, how's work?" Olivia asked absently, scrolling through her phone as I served dinner. "Actually, I got promoted to senior agent," I replied, trying to keep the pride from my voice. "I'm the youngest in the office to make that level." "That's nice," she said, barely looking up. "Did I tell you about Dr. Westfield? He's letting me assist on his research project next semester. It could lead to publication in the Journal of Neurological Science." Just like that, my achievement was brushed aside. I swallowed my disappointment with a sip of wine. "That sounds amazing, Liv. I'm really proud of you." Later that evening, as we were looking through photos on her phone, Olivia showed me pictures of her new study group. "That's Ethan, his dad's chief of surgery at Boston Memorial. And that's Natalie. She has a trust fund but still works harder than anyone I know. And this is Wesley. He's already been offered a position at his father's private practice." The way she spoke about these people, with reverence and a hint of insecurity, was how she used to talk about the popular kids in high school. But what struck me was the subtle implication that their family connections and wealth made them more worthy of respect than someone like me, who had built a career without such advantages. When I wrote the next tuition check, Olivia's thank you felt perfunctory, almost as if my contribution had transformed from generous gift to expected obligation. My boyfriend Elliot noticed the change before I fully admitted it to myself. After a Sunday brunch where my parents and Olivia discussed medical terminology like a secret language, deliberately excluding me from the conversation, Elliot voiced his concern on the drive home. "Your family treats you like an ATM, not a daughter or sister," he observed. "Did your mom even ask about your promotion?" "They're just excited about Olivia's journey," I defended, though a knot formed in my stomach. "Your journey matters too, Cassie." During Thanksgiving break, I overheard Olivia on the phone with her classmate Natalie. "No, I can't go to Aspen for winter break. My parents can't afford it, and I don't want to ask my sister for more money. She's already so smug about helping with tuition." Smug? The word stung like a slap. I had taken on a second client portfolio and deferred my condo purchase to maintain those payments. There was nothing smug about my sacrifice. When I approached Olivia about the comment, she became defensive. "You clearly don't understand the pressure I'm under," she snapped. "Everyone in my program comes from doctor families. Do you know what it's like being the scholarship student whose sister in real estate is footing the bill?" "I thought you were proud of what I'm doing to help you," I said quietly. "I am, but it's complicated. You wouldn't understand. It's not like you went to college." That dismissal of my intelligence and accomplishments revealed the growing gulf between us. In Olivia's evolving worldview, formal education had become the only measure of worth, and my successful career, without a degree, somehow made my achievements less valid. My birthday fell during her final exam period that year. I understood when she couldn't call until 3 days later, breathless and distracted. "Sorry, Cass. It's been insane. Did Mom and Dad do something nice for you?" "They sent a card," I replied, not mentioning that they had forgotten until I called them. "Well, I'll make it up to you at Christmas," she promised, before launching into a story about her brilliant diagnosis during rounds. She never did make it up to me. Instead, at Christmas, she spent most of her time studying or texting her classmates, emerging only for meals where she and my parents discussed her medical school accomplishments, while my recent success closing the largest commercial property deal in our agency's history warranted only passing interest. As I wrote the check for her second-year tuition, delaying my own dental work to cover it, I felt the first serious doubts about our arrangement. But I had made a promise, and unlike the shifting loyalty of my family, my words still meant something to me. "You're being taken advantage of," Elliot said that night, watching me update my budget to accommodate the payment. She's family, I replied simply. Family should lift you up, not drain you dry. I didn't have an answer for that because deep down I was beginning to wonder the same thing. By Olivia's third year of medical school, the financial strain had become a constant weight on my shoulders. The real estate market had cooled, reducing my commission income, yet the $9,000 annual payment remained non-negotiable in my budget. I had taken on weekend home staging work with my colleague Patricia to supplement my income, often working 70-hour weeks. One Wednesday evening, after staging a lakefront property until midnight, I developed a persistent migraine that lasted 3 days. The doctor attributed it to stress and exhaustion. You need to reduce your workload, Dr. Keller advised, writing a prescription for migraine medication. Your blood pressure is concerning for someone your age. I nodded politely, but knew cutting back wasn't an option. Olivia's third-year clinical rotations required additional expenses, special equipment, appropriate attire, transportation between hospitals. She had called just last week requesting an extra $1,200. It's not covered by tuition, she explained, irritation edging her voice when I didn't immediately agree. Everyone has to buy their own diagnostic kit. I transferred the money that night, canceling the weekend trip Elliot had planned for my birthday. The following month, scrolling through Instagram while waiting for client, I froze at a photo of Olivia and her classmates at an upscale Boston restaurant. The caption read, "Post-exam celebration at Morton's. #treat yourself #future doctors." The $200 stakes visible in the picture represented nearly a week's worth of groceries in my budget. 2 days later, another post showed her weekend trip to a spa with her friend Natalie. Much needed relaxation. #self-care. During the same week, she had texted me about struggling to make rent. When I carefully broached the subject during our monthly call, Olivia became immediately defensive. Are you monitoring my social media now? Those were gifts from friends. And I'm allowed to have some joy in my life. Med school is stressful enough without my sister policing my every move. I'm not policing you, Liv. I'm just trying to understand where the money is going when you say you're struggling. You promised to help me through med school, she snapped. If you're regretting that now, just say so. That's not what I have to go. Some of us have actual life or death things to study. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. Later that evening, my mother called, her voice tight with disapproval. Olivia is very upset. She says you're questioning her spending habits and making her feel guilty about your help. Mom, she told me she couldn't pay rent, then posted pictures of a spa weekend. Medical school is incredibly demanding, Cassandra. If anyone deserves a break, it's your sister. I thought you were happy to support her dream. I am, but your father and I are so proud of how she's performing in her clinical rotations. Her advisor says she might be eligible for a prestigious residency if she maintains these evaluations. The subject was closed, my concerns dismissed. The pattern was so familiar I could have recited the script in advance. As graduation approached, family conversations increasingly centered around celebration plans. My parents had reserved a private room at Blackstone Manor, an exclusive restaurant where the starting price for dinner was $125 per person. We're inviting Olivia's advisors and key professors, my mother announced during a family call. It needs to be impressive. These connections will be crucial for her residency applications. I could help with the planning, I offered. I organize client events all the time. Oh, that won't be necessary, Mom replied dismissively. Olivia and I have it handled. We need it to have a certain professional atmosphere. The implication was clear. My input wasn't sophisticated enough for Olivia's medical world. When the invitation arrived in my email, I noticed I wasn't listed among the hosts of the event. Only my parents were named, despite my significant financial contribution to the degree being celebrated. The final tuition payment coincided with a down payment deadline for a small condo I'd been hoping to purchase. After 4 years of delaying my own goals, I had finally found a property within my budget. But the timing made it impossible to do both. Maybe you should skip this payment, Elliot suggested as we sat surrounded by mortgage paperwork. She's almost done, And this place is perfect for you. I stared at the check already made out to Bradshaw Medical School. I can't back out now, not at the finish line. Cassie, you've put your life on hold for 4 years. At some point, you need to prioritize your own future. Just 6 more months, I promised, both to him and myself. Once she's graduated, my obligation is complete. I mailed the check and called the real estate agent to withdraw my offer on the condo. That night, I cried for the first time in years, not just for the home I wouldn't have, but for the growing realization that my sacrifices seemed increasingly invisible to those I'd made them for. Graduation day dawned with perfect May weather, sunshine and blue skies that seemed to validate all the sacrifices leading to this moment. Despite everything, genuine pride swelled in my chest as I prepared for my sister's big day. I had helped make this possible, and no amount of tension could diminish that accomplishment. I'd spent weeks searching for the perfect gift, eventually selecting a vintage medical bag from the 1940s that I'd found through an antique dealer client. It had belonged to one of Boston's first female surgeons and cost nearly 2 months of staging income. I had it professionally restored and engraved with Olivia's name and graduation date. Elliot and I arrived at the ceremony venue early. He squeezed my hand supportively as we found seats next to my parents, who acknowledged us with brief nods before returning to their conversation with a distinguished-looking couple. Thomas and Rebecca Mitchell, my father was saying, Olivia's parents. We couldn't be prouder of her accomplishment. The Mitchells have a tradition of excellence, my mother added. We always emphasize the importance of education in our family. I bit my tongue, remembering how they had questioned the value of college when I expressed interest. Such expense for a girl with your practical skills, Cassandra. The ceremony itself was moving. When Olivia Mitchell was called and she walked across the stage, tears sprang to my eyes. Despite our complicated relationship, watching my little sister receive her medical degree felt momentous. I had kept my promise. She was now Dr. Mitchell. After the ceremony, we gathered at Blackstone Manor for the exclusive celebration. The private dining room was elegant, with white floral arrangements and custom menus featuring Olivia's name and medical caduceus. I estimated the cost at well over $10,000, more than my annual contribution. As I circulated awkwardly among Olivia's professors and classmates, I felt increasingly out of place. The conversations revolved around medical specialties, research opportunities, and family connections at prestigious hospitals, worlds away from my real estate expertise. "And what do you do, dear?" asked an older woman in an expensive suit, her tone suggesting she expected something suitably impressive. "I'm in real estate," I replied. "Commercial and luxury residential." Oh, her interest visibly waned. "And how do you know Olivia?" "I'm her sister." Wonderful to have a doctor in the family, isn't it? Someone who really made it. Before I could respond, Olivia clinked her glass for attention. Standing next to our beaming parents, she looked every inch the successful doctor in her new designer dress, a stark contrast to the sensible outfit I'd purchased on sale. "I want to thank everyone who helped me reach this day," she began, her voice confident. "My incredible parents who always believed in my potential and instilled the values that got me here. My brilliant professors who shaped my understanding of medicine. My amazing friends who became family during our countless study sessions and clinical rotations." She continued acknowledging various mentors and colleagues, each receiving a personal anecdote or inside joke that elicited warm laughter. I waited for my name, the recognition of my contribution, but it never came. The speech concluded with a toast to new beginnings and the bright future ahead, with no mention of the sister who had helped fund that future. After the applause died down, I approached Olivia near the dessert table, the gift bag clutched in my sweating palm. "Congratulations, Dr. Mitchell," I said, attempting lightness. "I'm so proud of you." She smiled tightly, glancing over my shoulder at a group of classmates. "Thanks for coming, Cassie. I got you something special," I continued, offering the bag. "It's unique, like your journey." She peeked inside without removing the carefully wrapped package, then set it aside with barely a glance. "I'll open it later." I should really circulate. Of course. I just wanted to say how happy I am for you. These 4 years were tough, but seeing you achieve your dream makes it all worthwhile. Something hardened in her expression. Your job is done. You shouldn't be here. The words landed like a physical blow. What? This is a professional event, Cassie. These connections are important for my career. You've fulfilled your obligation. You don't need to hover now. As I stood speechless, my mother appeared beside us, champagne flute in hand. Olivia, Dr. Westfield is asking about your research presentation, she said, then noticed my expression. Is everything all right? Cassie seems confused about her role today, Olivia replied coolly. My mother laughed, patting my arm condescendingly. Oh, Cassandra, you don't know your place. This is Olivia's professional world now. Perhaps you should mingle with the catering staff. Their conversation might be more your speed. They both laughed, turning away as Dr. Westfield approached. I stood frozen, the noise of the party suddenly distant as blood rushed in my ears. Across the room, Elliot caught my eye, his expression concerned. I smiled mechanically, placed my untouched champagne on a nearby table, and walked calmly toward the exit. Elliot followed, catching up in the hallway. Cassie, what happened? You're white as a sheet. I couldn't form words yet, simply shaking my head and continuing toward the parking lot. Only when we reached the car did the reality of what had just occurred hit me fully. 4 years of financial sacrifice, $36,000 I would never recover, countless overtime hours and deferred dreams, all for someone who saw me as nothing more than a temporary resource. Take me home, I whispered as Elliot started the car. Not to my parents' house. Home. As we drove away from Blackstone Manor, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Where did you go? Your mother says you're being dramatic again. I turned off my phone and watched the graduation balloons fade in the distance, along with my illusions about my place in the Mitchell family. The week following Olivia's graduation unfolded like a surreal dream. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years, unable to summon the energy or focus needed for client interactions. My phone accumulated missed calls and increasingly aggravated texts from my parents and Olivia, all of which I left unanswered. Elliot brought groceries and stayed over, his quiet support more valuable than any words of comfort. On the third night, as we sat on my small balcony watching the sunset, he finally broke his patient silence. They don't deserve you, Cassie. None of them. I traced the condensation on my water glass, trying to articulate the confusing mix of anger, grief, and liberation I was feeling. The worst part isn't even what they said. It's realizing this is how they've always seen me, as the practical one, the supporter, never the star. What are you going to do? He asked. I don't know yet, but I know what I'm not going to do. Apologize for ruining Olivia's day, which is what my mother's demanding. On day 5, I returned to work, throwing myself into a major commercial listing presentation. The familiar routine of market analyses and property staging provided welcome distraction from the familial earthquake still sending aftershocks through my life. My colleague Audrey noticed my subdued demeanor during our team lunch. Did something happen with your sister's graduation? She asked gently. You were so excited about it last week. The simple question cracked my carefully maintained composure. Before I knew it, I was sharing the whole painful story, including the devastating words at the celebration. My parents want me to apologize for leaving early, I concluded, wiping away unexpected tears. As if I'm the one who did something wrong. Audrey's expression shifted from sympathy to outrage. You funded her education for 4 years, and they treat you like an embarrassing relative? Absolutely not. Her indignation was oddly healing, external validation that I wasn't overreacting. That evening, I created a spreadsheet of my financial contributions to Olivia's education, $36,000 in direct payments, plus approximately $4,800 in textbooks, equipment, and emergency expenses over 4 years. With interest calculated at standard loan rates, the total approached $45,000, money I would likely never see again, despite Olivia's initial promises to repay every penny. More significant than the financial investment was the opportunity cost. The condo I didn't buy, now sold to another buyer. The retirement savings delayed. The vacations not taken. The dental work postponed. Seeing it quantified made both my sacrifice and my family's dismissal of it starker. My father called again that night. Unlike my mother's voicemails, which were filled with recriminations about my jealousy and immaturity, his message sounded genuinely confused. Cassandra, I don't understand what happened. Please call us. Your mother is very upset. I texted back simply, I need time. Olivia finally broke her silence with a lengthy text that managed to be both condescending and accusatory. I don't know why you're making such a drama out of nothing. You offered to help with school because you wanted to. Nobody forced you. Now you're acting like I owe you something beyond normal gratitude. You chose not to go to college, so maybe you just can't understand the pressure I'm under establishing my career. Not everything is about you. The message crystallized what I had begun to suspect. In Olivia's narrative, my financial support had been recast as a voluntary gift requiring minimal acknowledgement, rather than a significant sacrifice that altered the course of my own life. At Elliot's suggestion, I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Eleanor Grant, a therapist specializing in family dynamics. In our first session, I brought my childhood photo album, using images to illustrate the patterns I was only now recognizing. Here's Olivia's 10th birthday. My parents hired a professional photographer. And here's my 16th, where Mom forgot to buy a cake. Dr. Grant introduced me to concepts I'd never considered: golden child syndrome, family systems theory, parentification, and the insidious nature of emotional neglect. We explored how I had internalized my supporting role, seeking validation through usefulness rather than intrinsic worth. Your family assigned you a role that benefited them, she explained. Now that you're questioning that role, they're responding with what we call an extinction burst, intensified attempts to pull you back into the established pattern. The clarity was both painful and liberating. I began keeping a journal, documenting memories and patterns that suddenly made sense through this new lens. I remembered my mother dismissing my straight-A report card because Olivia had been accepted to a gifted program that same week. I recalled my father attending every one of Olivia's science competitions, but missing my real estate license ceremony due to a scheduling conflict. 3 weeks after the graduation, I wrote a letter I never intended to send. It detailed every sacrifice, every dismissal, every moment I had been made to feel less valuable than my sister. I described the crushing words at the graduation and their devastating impact. I explained that I had never asked for special treatment, only basic respect and acknowledgement. Writing those 10 pages drained something poisonous from my system. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken, symbolic of the old dynamics I was determined to leave behind. When my colleagues invited me to a weekend hiking trip, I surprised myself by accepting something I would have declined in the past to keep my weekends open for family obligations or extra work to fund Olivia's expenses. Standing on a mountain overlook, breathing air that felt cleaner than anything in the city, I experienced a moment of perfect clarity. I was allowed to have my own life, my own achievements, my own joy, separate from my role in the Mitchell family narrative. I returned home sunburned, sore, and more at peace than I'd felt in years, ready to establish new boundaries that protected the self-worth I was slowly reclaiming. After nearly 3 months of limited contact with my family, brief, non-committal texts to my father, silence toward my mother and Olivia, I received an email from my father with a subject line, "Family meeting important." The message was direct. "Your mother and I insist you join us for dinner this Sunday. Olivia will be home before starting her residency. This division in the family needs to be resolved. 6 p.m. at our house. No excuses." I forwarded the email to Dr. Grant, who helped me prepare for what would clearly be a confrontational gathering. We role-played possible scenarios and established clear boundaries for the conversation. "Remember," she said at the end of our session, "you cannot control their reaction, only your response. Your truth is valid regardless of whether they accept it." Sunday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Elliot offered to accompany me, but I declined. This was a conversation I needed to have independently. My parents' house looked exactly the same as it had on my last visit before the graduation. Family photos lined the hallway, predominantly featuring Olivia's achievements, with my graduation from Real Estate Academy conspicuously absent. They were waiting in the living room, arranged like a tribunal. My parents on the sofa, Olivia in the armchair, with a single chair positioned opposite them. Clearly meant for me. The staging wasn't subtle. "Cassandra," my mother began before I'd even sat down. "This has gone on long enough. Your behavior has been inexcusable." "How have you been, Mom?" "Dad?" "Olivia?" I replied calmly, taking my seat. "It's been a while." My mother's lips thinned at the interruption. "We're not here for small talk. You've been ignoring this family for months after ruining what should have been the proudest day of our lives." "I ruined nothing," I said quietly. "I left a situation where I was being actively disrespected." "Oh, please," Olivia interjected, rolling her eyes. "You're still being dramatic about a simple misunderstanding." My father, looking uncomfortable, attempted mediation. "Cassandra, we understand you may have felt slighted, but family supports each other without expecting recognition." "Does it?" I opened my bag and removed a folder containing copies of every check I'd written to Bradshaw Medical School, every transfer to Olivia's account, every receipt for books and equipment. I placed it on the coffee table. This is what support looks like for my side. For years, $36,000 in tuition alone, plus approximately $4,800 in additional expenses. My father reached for the folder while my mother and Olivia exchanged glances. "What's this supposed to be?" my mother asked dismissively.
"A bill."
"Documentation," I corrected, since you all seem to have forgotten exactly what my job entailed. My father was silently flipping through the pages, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "You offered to help," Olivia said defensively. "Nobody forced you to write those checks." "You're right. I offered because I loved you and believed in you. I expected basic appreciation in return, not to be told I didn't belong at your graduation after 4 years of financial sacrifice." "It was a professional event," my mother insisted. "You were making Olivia uncomfortable with your hovering." "Asking for a simple acknowledgement is not hovering," I countered. "And if my presence was so uncomfortable, why was I invited at all?" "Because your family," my father said quietly, still looking through the financial records. "Rebecca, did you know Cassandra was contributing this much?" My mother waved her hand dismissively. "She has a good job and no student loans." It was the least she could do for her sister. The casualness with which she dismissed 4 years of sacrifice ignited something in me. "The least I could do?" I repeated, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath. "I postponed buying a home. I worked 60-hour weeks. I developed stress-related health problems. I delayed dental surgery to make tuition payments. And at the celebration of the degree I helped fund, I was told my job is done and I shouldn't be there." "You're exaggerating," Olivia said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I? Tell me, Olivia, how did you afford that weekend spa trip with Natalie last year when you told me you couldn't pay rent?" She flushed. "That's not." "Or the designer dress at graduation. Or the $300 dinners you posted on Instagram while telling me you were struggling to buy groceries." "You're just jealous because I have a real career and education," she snapped, falling back on the familiar attack. "I have a real career that I built myself, without anyone's financial support," I replied evenly. "A career that generated enough income to put you through medical school while you look down on it as somehow lesser than your chosen path." My father closed the folder slowly. "Cassandra, I had no idea the extent of your contribution. Why didn't you tell us you were struggling? Would it have mattered?" I asked simply. "When have my struggles ever taken precedence over Olivia's convenience?" The question hung in the air, uncomfortable in its accuracy. "This is ridiculous," my mother declared, standing abruptly. "We invited you here to apologize for your behavior, not to listen to these accusations. You've always been jealous of your sister's achievements." "I've never been jealous of Olivia," I replied, remaining seated. I've been proud of her. What I've wanted, what I deserved, was to be valued for my own achievements and sacrifices, not treated as a supporting character in the Olivia Mitchell success story. Nobody asked you to martyr yourself, Olivia said bitterly. No, they just expected it, I responded. And when I fulfilled those expectations, I was discarded the moment I was no longer useful. My father, still holding the financial documentation, looked genuinely troubled. Thomas Mitchell raised his daughters to treat each other with respect, he said slowly. I'm ashamed to see evidence that we've failed in that. Thomas, my mother exclaimed, don't encourage her victim mentality. It's not a mentality, Rebecca. These are facts. He tapped the folder. Cassandra made significant sacrifices that we've never properly acknowledged. This unexpected support from my father momentarily silenced the room. My mother's face flushed with anger, while Olivia stared at her hands. So, what do you want? My mother finally asked. Repayment? Public recognition? What will end this tantrum? I want acknowledgement of my worth beyond what I can provide for this family, I said simply. I want genuine respect for my choices and accomplishments. And I want an apology for the way I was treated at the graduation. I'm not apologizing for stating facts, Olivia said stubbornly. Your financial help was appreciated, but it doesn't entitle you to control my professional relationships. I never asked for control, only basic courtesy. Well, your financial assistance is no longer needed, my mother said coldly. Olivia starts her residency next month with a stipend that will support her. So, if you're expecting continued involvement in her career, you should adjust your expectations. The naked transactionalism of her statement confirmed everything I had come to understand about my place in the family. I stood up, surprisingly calm. I think we've clarified where we stand. I won't be providing any further financial support to anyone in this family. My job, as you put it, is indeed done. I walked to the door, pausing only when my father called my name. Cassandra, wait. He approached, handing me back my folder. This isn't right. We owe you more than this. Yes, you do, I agreed quietly. But I'm no longer waiting for that debt to be paid. As I drove away from my childhood home, I felt a complex mixture of sadness and liberation. The conversation had gone largely as expected, yet my father's moment of recognition offered a small, unexpected glimmer of hope that at least one member of my family might eventually see me clearly. 1 year after the graduation confrontation, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined during those painful months. Free from the financial burden of Olivia's education, I had redirected my resources toward my own dreams and well-being. The most visible change was my new condo, not the one I'd lost the previous year, but a brighter, more spacious property in a neighborhood I'd previously considered out of reach. With my excellent credit and savings accumulated over 6 post-Olivia months, I had secured favorable financing and finally achieved the homeownership milestone I'd deferred for so long. My career had flourished as well. Freed from the need to maximize every commission for Olivia's expenses, I became more selective about clients and properties, focusing on quality listings that aligned with my expertise in historic and luxury homes. This strategic shift led to a partnership offer from Audrey, who had recently launched her own boutique agency. Mitchell and Hayes Real Estate, she proposed over lunch, sliding a business plan across the table. Equal partners, specializing in properties with character and history. What do you think? The professional recognition felt particularly meaningful after years of having my career dismissed by my family. My relationship with Elliot had deepened through the family crisis. His unwavering support during my darkest moments revealed his character in ways that casual dating never could. On a weekend trip to Vermont, another luxury I wouldn't have permitted myself during the Olivia years, he proposed with a vintage ring that reflected my love of historical properties. You deserve someone who sees your value and celebrates your strength, he said as I accepted through happy tears. The most surprising development came 6 months after our confrontation, when my father contacted me to meet for coffee alone. Thomas Mitchell looked older than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper, his shoulders slightly stooped. He pushed an envelope across the cafe table before I could even greet him. "What's this?" I asked cautiously. "A letter. And something else I should have given you long ago." Inside was a check for $20,000 and a handwritten note expressing regret for his role in taking my contributions for granted. "This doesn't cover your financial sacrifice," he had written, "but I hope it represents a start toward making amends." "Dad, I don't need." "It's not about need, Cassandra. It's about recognition and respect." He looked down at his coffee. "Your mother and I separated 3 weeks ago." The news shocked me. My parents had been together for 35 years. What happened? Many things. But examining how we treated you was part of it. After our last conversation, I couldn't stop thinking about the patterns in our family. I started seeing a counselor who helped me understand how we'd prioritized Olivia's potential over your actual achievements. We talked for nearly 3 hours that day, having the most honest conversation of our adult lives. He shared his own experiences growing up overshadowed by a favored sibling and how unconsciously he had perpetuated that dynamic. I told him about my therapy journey and the boundaries I was establishing for my emotional health. Our relationship slowly rebuilt on this new, more equal foundation. We began a tradition of monthly breakfast meetings where we discussed everything from real estate trends to philosophy, discovering shared interests that had been overlooked in our previous family dynamic. My mother remained distant, sending a terse congratulatory text when she heard about my engagement, but making no effort toward reconciliation. Her identity had been so thoroughly invested in Olivia's achievements that acknowledging her treatment of me would require a level of self-reflection she seemed unwilling to undertake. Olivia's story took an unexpected turn. Her residency, while prestigious, proved more challenging than she had anticipated. Without additional family financial support, she struggled with the relatively modest stipend. 6 months in, she contacted me, her message striking a more humble tone than I'd heard in years. "I've been thinking about everything that happened," she wrote. "Medical training is harder than I expected, and I'm realizing how much I took your support for granted. I'm not asking for money, just maybe a chance to talk sometime." We met for coffee during her rare day off. The conversation was awkward at first, both of us carefully navigating around the painful history between us. "I didn't understand what it meant for you to help me through school," she finally admitted. "I was so focused on keeping up with my classmates from wealthy families that I didn't see the real cost to you." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start, an acknowledgement I had stopped expecting. When Dad's birthday approached, I invited him to dinner at a restaurant near my new home. He arrived early, smiling as he presented me with a small gift, a vintage key from an historic Boston property, mounted and framed. "For your new office," he explained. "Thought it would fit your aesthetic." Midway through our meal, Olivia arrived unexpectedly, looking nervous. "Dad invited me," she explained quickly. "I can leave if you'd prefer." "Stay," I said after a moment's consideration. "It's Dad's birthday." The dinner was a tentative experiment in new family dynamics, still awkward, still carrying the weight of past hurts, but with small openings toward something healthier. Perhaps the most meaningful development in my healing journey was the creation of the First Generation Achievement Fund, a small scholarship I established through my real estate earnings to help first-generation college students with textbook expenses. The modest grants couldn't fund entire educations, but they offered practical support to students navigating academic worlds without family financial backing, something I intimately understood. When Elliot asked why I would direct resources toward education after my experience with Olivia, my answer surprised even me. Because her actions don't get to determine the value of education or generosity, I explained. I still believe in helping others achieve their dreams, just with clearer boundaries and expectations. The scholarship's first recipient was a young woman studying architectural design while working full-time in retail. Her thank you letter, genuine and specific about how the funds would help her, brought tears to my eyes, healing something I hadn't realized was still wounded. As I reflect on the journey from that devastating graduation day to now, I'm struck by how crisis often reveals fundamental truths we might otherwise never confront. My family's rejection forced me to recognize my own worth independent of what I could provide for others. The pain of being told, "Your job is done," ultimately freed me to determine what my actual purpose might be. So, if you're watching this and feeling undervalued by family members who see you as a resource rather than a person, know that your worth isn't determined by their limited perspective. Sometimes the family we create through chosen relationships provides the recognition our biological relatives cannot. Have you ever sacrificed for someone who didn't appreciate it? How did you handle that situation? Share your experience in the comments below. And if you found value in my story, please subscribe to hear more real-life experiences about setting boundaries and rebuilding after family betrayal. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to stop accepting treatment that diminishes your worth. Thank you for listening, and I hope something in my journey helps illuminate your own path forward.